You keep attracting people who can't love you. They disappear just when you open up. They grow cold when you need warmth. They pull away when you move closer. You tell yourself it's bad luck, or bad timing, or maybe you're just not enough. But what if it's none of that? What if the reason love keeps slipping through your fingers has nothing to do with who they are, and everything to do with who you've been told you're not allowed to be? This video is not about finding the right person. It's about understanding why your heart keeps choosing people who confirm your deepest fears. Carl Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, and most people never do. You were taught early on that certain parts of you were too much, too sensitive, too angry, too needy. So you exiled them. You trimmed your soul to fit in rooms that could never hold it. You became nice, quiet, helpful, whatever it took to be chosen. But love built on performance is not love, it's survival. You look in the mirror and whisper affirmations, but nothing changes. Because the part of you that needs love isn't the one speaking, it's the one you've silenced. Jung called it the shadow, the parts of yourself you were forced to hide in order to belong. And here's the tragedy. Until you go into that shadow and bring those parts home, you will keep searching for someone to love what you haven't yet allowed to exist. This is the unconscious belief that you are unworthy of love unless you become someone else. And if you don't face it, you will live your whole life searching for mirrors that will reflect a version of you that isn't even yours. You'll keep getting smaller, you'll keep getting quieter, and you'll keep confusing absence for normal because that's how it started. This isn't your fault, but it is now your responsibility. You can't find real love until the mirror reflects your truth, not your mask. So ask yourself, what part of me did I abandon just to feel acceptable? And can I love that part enough to bring it back? Because until you do, no one will ever love you fully. Not because you're unlovable, but because you're still hiding. You stare at your phone, waiting for the 3 dots that never come. You call it chemistry, you call it fate. Oh, but deep down you already know this is the script again. You give more, they give less. You try harder, they pull away. And every time they disappear, something inside you whispers, see? I told you. That voice is old. It didn't come from this relationship. It came from the moment you first learned that love was a reward you had to earn. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life. And you will call it fate. And this is fate disguised as preference. You're not just attracted to who excites you, you're attracted to who confirms what you already believe about love, that it's distant, that it's conditional, that it hurts. This is called repetition compulsion, a psychological drive to recreate your earliest emotional wounds in your adult relationships, hoping this time you'll finally be enough to change the ending. But you won't, not until you understand why the story keeps repeating. You were trained to bond through anxiety. If love felt inconsistent, your nervous system learned to associate pain with connection. Calm doesn't feel safe, it feels boring, availability feels fake. And when someone shows you real care, your body flinches because it's not familiar. You think you're falling in love, but it's not love, it's recognition, a pattern, a wound wearing a new face. You're not addicted to them, you're addicted to the hope that this time abandonment will turn into affection. And if you love hard enough, they won't leave. But here's the truth no one told you. You will always be too much for someone who was never meant to hold you. This is the internalized belief that your worth is tied to effort, that love must be proven, not received. And if you don't face this wound, if you don't stop trying to earn what you were born worthy of, you will keep attracting people who remind you of the very love you never got. This isn't punishment, it's a mirror. Until you look into that mirror and say, I see you, I believe you, I'm staying with you now, you will keep handing your heart to people who don't have the capacity to hold it. You've called it love, but it was a negotiation, a performance, a ghost of something you never had. Real love doesn't feel like chaos. It feels like truth, like stillness, like something that doesn't ask you to beg. So if you're tired, if you're done repeating this cycle, start by making this conscious. You don't have to be abandoned to feel alive. You just have to come home. You meet them and suddenly everything feels electric. They see you, understand you, make the ache inside you feel holy. You call it connection, fate, twin flames maybe. But then the shift happens, the texts slow down. The warmth fades, they become distant, vague, confusing. You overthink every silence, you blame yourself. You try harder until you're exhausted, again. And still a voice inside says, this must be love. Why else would it hurt this much? But what if it isn't love? What if it's your shadow falling in love with itself? Carl Jung called it projection, when you unconsciously place disowned parts of yourself onto another. Not to manipulate them, but to find the pieces of you you no longer believe you're allowed to hold. The strength you admire in them. That was once yours. Their tenderness? A part of you buried to survive. Their mystery. The power you gave up to be accepted. You didn't fall for them. You fell for the version of you that flickered back at you in their eyes. This is the lie of the magical other. You think they complete you. But what they actually do is reflect you, the version of you you're still afraid to become. And the tragedy. Once the projection fades, so does the high. And what you're left with isn't clarity, it's craving, withdrawal, shame. Because you weren't just losing them, you were losing your access to your own soul. This is the ache to reclaim your wholeness, but doing it backwards through someone else's body. So you confuse anxiety with attraction. You chase those who abandon you. You stay loyal to those who breadcrumb you because a part of you still believes love is something you have to earn. And if you don't wake up from this story, you'll keep reliving it. A text left unread becomes a script. A hot and cold partner becomes a mirror. Their disinterest becomes your evidence. Your wound is not just choosing lovers, it's choosing how you define love. Here's a truth most people avoid. If you keep falling for those who make you disappear, you are still at war with the part of you that wants to exist. Clarissa Pinkola Estés once said, "To love means to embrace and at the same time to withstand many endings and many beginnings, all in the same relationship." But how can you withstand the ending if you've mistaken it for the end of yourself? They are not your missing piece, they are your invitation. And until you reclaim what you've projected, you'll keep chasing ghosts, not because you're broken, but because you forgot. The thing you thought they awakened was you. You've done everything right. You've read the books. You've learned the language of healing. You've told yourself the same affirmations 1,000 times. And still you chase. Still you settle. Still you ache like love is always 2 steps away. This is the point most people quit. Not because they're weak, but because the next step doesn't feel like progress. It feels like dying. Carl Jung called this the nigredo, the blackening, the dissolution of the false self. The moment when all your spiritual tricks stop working and your soul demands something real. It's not an idea. It's not a mindset. It's a grief so deep it makes you question who you've been this whole time. Because when you finally stop blaming them, you meet the child inside you who was abandoned first. Not by lovers, by you. The part of you who had big needs and was told to shrink. Who cried too loud and was told to be good. Who learned that love meant being useful, not being whole. And here's the unbearable truth. You didn't abandon them because you hated them. You abandoned them because you thought it was the only way to be loved. So you buried them under kindness, over functioning. Perfection. You built a self that looked strong but felt hollow. And that hollow space, that's where the ache lives. This, not the wound, but the belief that your wound makes you unlovable. And it's this belief that shapes your lovers, your losses, your loneliness. But here's the gift inside the blackening. When everything false dies, you begin to live. The child you left behind is still waiting, not for a partner, not for a parent, for you. To walk back into the ruins of what you had to forget. To kneel down and whisper, I'm not ashamed of you anymore. Clarissa Pinkola Estés said, a lover has to be chosen from soul craving, not from loneliness, not from wounds. But to crave from your soul, you must have your soul. Not the version shaped by performance, the raw one. The forgotten one, the one who didn't have to earn anything. The descent is not the end, it's the fire before the rebirth. You are not falling apart, you're falling through. On through the mask, through the roles. Through the echo of love you were taught to beg for. And what waits for you is not a better self. It's a truer one, the kind that doesn't chase love because it embodies it. So if you're in the dark now, good, don't rush to rise, stay, breathe, burn. Because the one who emerges from this place will no longer settle, will no longer pretend, will no longer apologize for existing. They will be the version of you who finally says, I am done performing. I am here, I am whole, and I'm not waiting to be chosen. You've stopped running. Not because the fear is gone, but because you're finally willing to turn around and face what's been chasing you all along. You, the version of you who was never broken, only buried under performance, under perfection, under people who didn't know how to love what you hadn't yet claimed. Carl Jung called this moment individuation, not healing, not fixing, but becoming whole. The sacred process of integrating what you lost in the name of being accepted. You're not here to be chosen. You're here to choose yourself. You used to call it love when someone made you feel alive. Now you know better. You were mistaking activation for connection, chemistry for anxiety, the ache of being unseen for desire. But now you've sat with your shadow. You've listened to the part of you that was never heard. You've stopped abandoning yourself just to stay desirable, and everything changes. The people you once chased feel different now. The hunger's gone, the high is gone. You see through the illusion, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Because the part of you that used to reach for chaos finally feels safe inside stillness. This is this. The full circle moment when you stop looking outside to complete a home you've now rebuilt within. And what a home it is. The mirror no longer cracks. The child no longer hides. The mask no longer fits. You no longer need someone to prove your worth because your worth is no longer negotiable. You become your own sanctuary. You hold your own tenderness. You become the one you were waiting for. And when love comes again, and it won't come to rescue you. It will come to meet you, whole to whole, soul to soul, fire to fire. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You're not becoming lovable, you're becoming yourself. And from that place, love doesn't feel like proof, it feels like presence. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It doesn't feel like a storm or a burning need to be seen. It feels like breathing, like a quiet exhale after holding your breath for too many years. Love, real love, arrives when you stop performing. When you no longer need to be rescued. When you're no longer hungry for someone to fill the space you've already learned to sit with. By now you've walked through the dark, you've named the ghost. You've kissed the hands of the child you once abandoned and said, we're safe now. And something inside you finally believes it. You no longer need to chase clarity in someone else's confusion. You no longer mistake absence for a challenge. You no longer shrink in the presence of silence because you've made peace with your own voice. You are no longer looking for someone to tell you who you are because you know this is this. The final revelation that love was never about being picked. It was about being present to your truth, to your boundaries, to your joy that no longer depends on being seen from the outside. Clarissa Pinkola Estés said, when women remember themselves, it is not with their minds, but with their bodies. their bones, their breath. And whether you are man, woman, or something in between, your return has always lived beneath your armor. In the stillness, in the breath, in the part of you that never stopped hoping you'd come back. You are not waiting anymore. You are not hoping they'll finally see you. You are not dressing your shadow in gold to be worthy of gaze. You are not auditioning. You are not explaining. You are not begging. You are home. And now love can find you. Not because you chased it, but because you became it. No one will love you until you understand this. Not because people are cruel, but because until now you couldn't hold the kind of love you were asking for, but you can now. You're not in fragments anymore, you're a constellation. And your light doesn't flicker for attention, it just burns. So if this spoke to you, if a part of you was seen here for the first time, don't just click away, say something in the comments to a friend, to your past self, to the person still performing. Tell them you're allowed to come home. And if you do, you'll find you were never unlovable. You were just waiting to remember.